Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nippano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Saranyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nante Namataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalago. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, and Shri Kolval Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert, scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they're honored all over the 3 worlds. They're worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Kṛṣṇa. And this is the Nectar of Devotion, the summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti-rasa Sindhu, as presented by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. And this is Chapter 5, Purity of Devotional Service. All of the previous instructions imparted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his broad statements can be summarized thus. As long as one is materially inclined or desirous of merging into the spiritual effulgence, one cannot enter into the realm of pure devotional service. Next, Rupa Goswami states that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations and that it is not limited to any particular country, class, society, or circumstance. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is transcendental and has no cause. Devotional service is executed without any hope for gain, and it cannot be checked by any material circumstances. It's open for all, without any distinction, and it is the constitutional occupation of the living entities. In the Middle Ages, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claimed to be the descendants of Nityananda, calling themselves the Goswami caste. They further claimed that the practice of spreading the devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which was known as Nityananda Vamsa. In this way, they executed their artificial power for some time, until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides that, anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already on the status of being a high-class Brahmin. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's struggle for this movement has come out successful. It is on the basis of his position that anyone can now become a Gaudiya Vaishnava from any part of the world or any part of the universe. Anyone who is a pure Vaishnava is situated transcendentally, and therefore the highest qualification in the material world, namely to be in the mode of goodness, is already achieved by such a person. Our Kṛṣṇa consciousness movement in the Western world is based on the above-mentioned proposition of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, our spiritual master. On his authority, we are claiming members from all sections of the Western countries. The so-called Brahmins claim that one who is not born into a Brahmin family cannot receive sacred thread, cannot become a high-grade Vaishnava. But we do not accept such a theory because it is not supported by Rupa Goswami nor by the strength of the various scriptures. Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions herein that every man has the birthright to accept devotional service and to become Kṛṣṇa conscious. He has given many evidences from many scriptures, and he has especially quoted one passage from Padma Purana, wherein the sage Vasishtha tells King Dilipa, "My dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service, just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magh, December, January." There is more evidence in the Padma Purana and in the Kashikanda portion wherein it is said, "In the country known as Mayuradvaj, the lower caste people who are considered less than Sudras are also initiated in Vaishnava cult of devotional service, and when they're properly dressed with tilak on their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmins." Thus, a Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmin. This idea is supported by Sanatana Goswami in his book Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is the Vaishnava Guide. Therein he has clearly stated that any person who is properly initiated into the Vaishnava cult certainly becomes a Brahmin, as much as the metal known as Kamsa, bell metal, is turned into gold by the mixture of mercury. A bona fide spiritual master under the guidance of authorities can turn anyone to the Vaishnava cult, so that naturally he may come to the topmost position of a Brahmin. Srila Rupa Goswami warns, however, that if a person is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he should not think that simply by the acceptance of such initiation his business is then finished. One has to follow the rules and regulations very carefully. If after accepting the spiritual master and being initiated, one does not follow the rules and regulations of devotional service, then he is again fallen. One must be very vigilant to remember that he is the part and parcel of the transcendental body of Kṛṣṇa, and that it is his duty as part and parcel to give service to the whole, or Kṛṣṇa. If we do not render service to Kṛṣṇa, then again we fall down. In other words, simply becoming initiated does not elevate one to the position of a high-class Brahmin. One has to discharge the duties and follow the regulative principles very rigidly. Srila Rupa Goswami also says that if anyone is regularly discharging devotional service, then there will be no question of a fall down. But even if circumstantially there is some fall down, the Vaishnava need have nothing to do with the prayaschita, a ritualistic ceremony for purification. If someone falls down from the principles of devotional service, he need not take to prayaschita performance for reformation. He has simply to execute the rules and regulations for discharging devotional service, and this is sufficient for his reinstatement. This is the mystery of the Vaishnava devotional cult. Practically, there are three processes for elevating one to the platform of spiritual consciousness. These processes are called karma, jnana, and bhakti. Ritualistic performances are in the field of karma. Speculative processes are in the field of jnana. One who has taken to bhakti, devotional service of the Lord, need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. It has been already explained that pure devotional service is without any tinge of karma or jnana. Bhakti should have no tinge of philosophical speculation or ritualistic performances. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami gives evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, in which it is said by Lord Kṛṣṇa to Uddhava, the distinction between qualification and disqualification may be made in this way. Persons who are already elevated in discharging devotional service will never again take shelter of the processes of fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. If one sticks to devotional service and is conducted by regulative principles given by the authorities and acharyas, that's the best qualification. This statement is supported in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, wherein Sri Narada Muni advises Vyasadeva thusly, even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hare Kṛṣṇa, there will be no fault on his part, and in all circumstances his position is secure. Even if by some bad association he falls down by executing devotional service, or if he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he's not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in varna and ashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. The purport is that all conditioned souls who are engaged very frantically in activities for sense gratification, without knowing that this process will never help them to get out of material contamination, are rewarded only repeated births and deaths. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated by Rishabdev to his sons, persons who engage in fruitive activities are repeatedly accepting birth and death. Until they develop a loving feeling for Vasudeva, there will be no question of getting out from these stringent laws of material nature. As such, any person who is very seriously engaged in his occupational duties in the varnas and ashrams, and who's not developed love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, is to be understood as simply spoiling his human form of life. This is also confirmed in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which the Lord says to Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, any person who takes shelter of me in complete surrender, follows my instructions, giving up all occupational duties, is to be considered the first-class man. In this statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood that people who are generally attracted to philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, political, and social welfare activities may be considered nice men only in calculation of the material world. From Srimad Bhagavatam and other authentic Vedic scriptures, we learn further that if a person simply acts in Krishna consciousness, discharges devotional service, he's considered to be far, far better situated than all of those persons engaged in philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, and social welfare activities. The same thing is still more emphatically confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, in which Karabhajana Muni addresses Maharaj Nimi as follows. My dear king, if someone gives up his occupational duties as they are prescribed for the different varnas and ashrams, but takes complete shelter, surrendering himself unto the lotus feet of the Lord, such a person is no more a debtor, nor has he any obligation to perform the different kinds of activities we render to the great sages, ancestors, living entities, family, and society members. Neither has he any need to bother executing the 5 kinds of jnanas or sacrifices for becoming free from sinful contamination. Simply by discharging devotional service, he's freed from all kinds of obligations. The purport is that as soon as a man takes his birth, he's immediately indebted to so many sources. He's indebted to great sages because he profits by reading their authoritative scriptures and books. For example, we take advantage of the books written by Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva has left for us all the Vedas. Before Vyasadev's writing, the Vedic literature was simply heard, and disciples would learn the mantras quickly by hearing, not by reading. Later on, Vyasadeva thought it wise to write down the Vedas, because in this age people are short-memoried and unable to remember all the instructions given by the spiritual master. Therefore, he left all Vedic knowledge in book form, such as the Puranas, Vedanta, Mahabharata, and Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many other sages like Shankaracharya, Gautama Muni, Narada Muni, etc., to whom we are indebted because we take advantage of their knowledge. Similarly, we're obliged to our forefathers because we take our birth in a particular family where we take all advantages and inherent property. Therefore, we're indebted to the forefathers and have to offer them pinda, prasadam, after they're dead. Similarly, to people in general, we're also indebted, as well as to our relatives, friends, and even animals, such as cows and dogs, who render us so much service. In this way, we're indebted to demigods, to forefathers, to sages, to animals, to society in general. It is our duty to repay them all by proper discharge of service. But by the one stroke of devotional service, if someone gives up all obligations and simply surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is no longer a debtor, nor obliged to any other source of benefit. In Bhagavad Gita also the Lord says, "Give up all your occupations and just become surrendered unto me. I give you assurance that I shall give you protection from all sinful reactions." One may think that because he is surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will not be able to perform all of his other obligations. But the Lord says repeatedly, don't hesitate. Don't consider that because you're giving up all other engagements, there'll be some flaw in your life. Don't think like that. I will give you all protection. That's the assurance of Lord Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad Gita. There is additional evidence in the Agastya Sanhita, as the regulative principles of scriptures are not required by a liberated person. Similarly, a person who is engaged duly in the service of Lord Ramachandra is also not required to discharge ritualistic principles, which are indicated in the Vedic supplementaries. In other words, devotees of Lord Ramachandra or Kṛṣṇa are already liberated persons and are not required to follow all the regulative principles mentioned in the ritualistic portions of the Vedic literature. Similarly, 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Karavajana Muni addresses King Nimi and says, "My dear king, a person who has given up the worship of the demigods and has completely concentrated his energy in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has become very, very dear to the Lord. As such, if by chance or mistake he does something which is forbidden, there's no need for him to perform any purificatory ceremonies. Because the Lord is situated within his heart, he takes compassion for the devotee's accidental mistake and corrects him from within. It's also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in many places. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, takes a special interest in his devotees and declares emphatically that nothing can cause his devotees to fall down. He's always protecting them."